This is Charlene Shanklin. You are listening to the Prophet Report podcast from WHS 11 Media. Now, here's Doug Prophet.
Louisville will be electing a brand new mayor in 2022. Greg Fisher's third term is up, and after 12 years in office, he's done. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining me for this edition of the Prophet Report podcast. I'm Doug Prophet. I am so excited for the upcoming mayor's race. I'm expecting it to be unlike any we've ever had, packed with diverse candidates, and I bet in the end, several African-American candidates. Louisville may also be making history with this mayoral election. We could elect our first black man or black woman or first woman, period. This will be the most interesting race I've ever covered in my 34 years at WHAS television, and the most interesting race in my lifetime growing up here in Louisville. So why? Well, our past mayor's races have been predictable and boring, except that year in the late 90s when Tom Owen campaigned by bicycling to every neighborhood, then spending the night in people's homes, and then stumping in the area a couple of days before moving on. With that low-profile campaign, he nearly beat Dave Armstrong. But now, of course, our city is still recovering from COVID. The fallout from the Breonna Taylor killing by Metro Police, demands for equal justice, and better housing, bigger investments in struggling neighborhoods. I'm going to be bringing you a podcast with each single candidate that declares for mayor. And since she made it known first back on January 8th, I'm starting with local activist and manager of the Louisville Bail Project, Shameka Parrish-Wright. She loves politics and is running as a Democrat right now on the Prophet Report. You know, one of the interviews, Shameka, I was reading about, you said that you believe you're qualified to be mayor because you've lived so many different lives in this city. And one of the things that you experienced was homelessness. You were homeless. How long were you homeless? Where did that happen? And how did you pull yourself out of it?
I appreciate that. I was homeless twice, actually, in this city. When I moved here in the early 2000s, around 2002, I had to stay at Wayside. I first slept in the car with my 3 children. I was expecting my 4th. And I slept in the car because the shelter, Wayside, was on Market Street then, Market and Shelby, and they didn't have enough room for me and my kids. And that's the thing, too. When you're homeless with a big family, that changes the choices and the amount of resources that you have. And so the next day they had room. I was sent to the Center for Women and Families, but because those were folks that stayed there were based on domestic issues, I didn't want to take up a space or a bed or space from someone who was suffering from domestic situations. My situation was I simply was poor and just did not have enough money. I actually had stayed for a month at the extended stay out near Breckenridge and Dutchman's Lane. And then after a month, the extended stay went up on my rate, and the savings that I had to move to Louisville was depleted, and I didn't get. And so I said, if I stay here, I'm not going to have any money to even put gas in the car and to feed the kids. So that's when I decided that I needed to go to a homeless shelter. And not my first experience with homelessness growing up. I grew up with a single parent who struggled, and so we were homeless many times. So I literally was considered chronically homeless because of the different experiences with homelessness. But yeah, back then I was 20. I was in my 20s. I was pregnant with my 4th daughter, stayed at Wayside for 4 months because when I got there, it was in August. I was due to have my 4th daughter in November, and I was able to secure an apartment in September, but because I didn't have any family or anyone here at that time, I decided to stay in the shelter until after I gave birth. So I stayed there for quite some time. And then I
want people to visualize what you're talking about because I've been in that shelter many times. That at the time was the Nulu, what is now called Nulu, and it was right there on East Market Street.
You are correct.
Right. It's now a restaurant called Decca. That was the administration building for Wayside Christian. And then the women and family shelter was all in those buildings through there. So you were there at a time before Louisville even started changing in that part of town.
You're exactly right. And I probably saw you doing a story on one of the Christmas stories or one of the many mailings
with Tim
I had to
and Tim and Nina Mosley.
Yes, yes. Very familiar with them. They actually recognized me, and I don't know if it was WHAS or WLKY, but they did a Christmas story where I was featured because when I came there, I not only helped myself get out of poverty, I helped several of the women there. I had my car, so I would use my car to take them to their appointments, to wait for them at the doctor's office, to help them move into their apartments, to even babysit their kids. So when I came out of there, I also helped a great deal of people who had been there 6 months, a year. Back then, you could stay in the homeless shelters for quite some time because they had a savings program where they would take a portion of the money that you got from whatever means, and they would save it until you were ready to move out. And so when you moved out, you got to shop at the Wayside store, and you also received a check. And Miss Lynn and everyone, and the donations were dropped off many times right there on Market Street. I was literally on the third floor where that little window is on the side. When I go now, I love all the businesses around there. I love the development that's happened. I actually wanted to live in that area, but I could not afford it, and I needed a bigger place.
So what was your break? What was the moment that turned you into a different direction? Because as you have said, you've had your children here, you got married here, you've been a business owner, you're still a business owner, and much more than that. What was it that turned you in a different direction?
Several things. The main thing was continuing my education, joining a lot of community efforts. I joined the Housing Action Team to help establish the Housing Trust Fund. I joined because I was getting Section 8 at the time. And then going to school, I went to school for human services. I transferred from the University of Cincinnati, went to JCC, and then went to the University of Louisville. And then everybody that I encountered on that path helped inspire me to do more and do better. I would say the most influential part was being an intern at the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. And I came in and met Ann Braden, Alice Wade, Dr. Blaine Hudson, and started immediately working with them and so many more amazing folks. And that is one of the key drivers to me getting out, becoming self-sufficient, setting up ways to earn money, ways to raise my children, and ways to give back to the community.
Well, let's talk about what the Shameka Parrish-Wright platform for Louisville mayor will be. You've said that you're going to start an exploratory committee and you want to run for mayor in 2022. You were the first person to even declare a public interest in that. And I went back and did research, and we believe, and I talked to the historian Tom Owen, that you will be the first black candidate since 1998. I covered that last race in 98. Bill Wilson of West Louisville, it was an alderman, and he ran as a Republican out of West Louisville. And Tom Owen was in that race, and Dave Armstrong was in that race. And Bill Wilson actually did a pretty good job with the vote numbers, but Dave Armstrong ended winning. So you, if elected, would be the first woman for Louisville, the first black mayor for Louisville. What's coming to the top of your platform?
The people, right? I think that I voted for Greg Fisher, and I think Councilman Tandy had put a bid in back when Greg Fisher first ran, but there was other black candidates, but it was about 20-something people in the race. I actually helped host it with the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. I used to work for them, as well as Kentucky Jobs with Justice, and we hosted a candidate forum, and I remember being there and watching all the different candidates through the years. But I voted for Greg Fisher because you talk about the changes before where Wayside became Nulu. I lived through that, and I was there, and I saw the development that was needed. But I know we didn't need to lose everything that it was there. Butchertown, I worked at Swift. I definitely was very familiar with the community, and I saw from living in the West End that we needed some changes, that places have been neglected. And so voting for Fisher was about jobs and building our communities and strengthening them. And then, thinking about when the term limits were put in place and thinking about the candidacy, and how many times that we've chosen businessmen as our leaders. And because the thought is, a businessman is best positioned to make the decisions needed. And in Louisville, it's been a lot of white businessmen that have been in that position, which is, I'm not trying to shame them in this process. I'm saying what we need now is change. What we need now is for the people to be inspired by whoever takes that public office to motivate our whole city. Because now we're a medium-sized city. We're growing in so many ways. And what it took to build us to where we are may not be, we might need to add to that to be bigger and to be better for where we're going. So the platform, I'm steady. I'm working on it constantly. I'm adding things in. As you might know, I've been a part of the protest in the Breonna Taylor case, and making sure that folks had a base, or make sure that we can come together and organize. And that's with our business community. None of this has been negligent of businesses, because I actually operate a small business, and my business has suffered. I actually am located in the Hayfern building, and I've been there since I came back to Louisville in 2014. And I know how important it is to have all the businesses, all the communities thrive. And so the suspicion that sometimes comes up with me is that she's just anti-police or no, I'm for rethinking public safety, investing in public health, and looking at how our parks were pivotal during COVID-19 and how we need to have those parks ready and poised for whatever's coming next. If everyone is vaccinated, how do we never get there again? These are spaces where our children will need them even more. Just like the public libraries, those are places where we need to always show our biggest support, because the health impacts and all the crisis that has come from COVID-19 has exposed that we lack so many areas around the understanding that our city is capable of being the best city ever. And that doesn't just come from the business community. That's with the business community, but it's bigger than business. It's about community and investing and reimagining public safety, not saying that we're not ready to do away with our police. I know that that's where some people are. I'm not even for impeaching or removing our governor or our mayor. I think that there's still a lot that we can get out of Greg Fisher as this transition happens. But I do believe we need to be more proactive. And that comes when we prioritize people over everything. And so when we look at the police budget, when folks say defund, the part I chime in on is defund and reallocate. So I've talked to the police. I've talked to the police chief, the interim police chief. I'm due to talk to the new police chief soon. But what I hear a lot of the police saying is that we're not social workers. We're not counselors. We're not teachers. We're not therapists. Well, okay, then you're telling us that's what you need to help do community police in the right way. That's what you need. So we're not saying you're not needed in that way. We're saying to reimagine community policing means that we get officers paired with social workers, that we're making sure teachers have every resource they need, that we're making sure that we're listening to actually the police officers too when they say they need help, because that's what I hear them saying. So reestablishing places like the living room, where police officers told me they like the fact that they can drop people off and avoid arrest, where people who feed the poor, like Feed Louisville, like Jeff Gill, can take people or pick people up from there and make sure that they get the housing that they need. I think that what's happening is that we cannot go back to business as usual, but we can still do business better. We can still do community better. We just have people who are willing to be bold and take us to the next level.
Well, you've answered about 10 of my questions so far, so I'm good. That's all right. I'm going to backtrack and we're going to zero in on some of these key points that you brought up. And first of all, thanks for reminding me about David Tandy. He's going to say to me, Doug, how could you forget me? Because you know what? He could very well be in this next mayor's race. I think it's going to be.
My husband voted for Tandy, and I voted for Fisher that year, so I can never forget. I came home and I was like, he said, "Who you vote for?" I said, "I voted for Fisher." He said, "Well, I voted for Tandy." I was like, "Okay." Yeah.
So let's go back to some key points that you brought up. The fact that you sound very pro-business and bringing back downtown Louisville, and that's a question I wanted to get to because you raised your involvement with the protests. And as you know, it's a lot of people post these things and say that they were with the protesters at the beginning, and then the protesters lost them after the vandalism and the violence and surrounding of cars and all of that. So to run for mayor, you want to get the most votes. What's your message to everybody in the community about that and how you view it?
The message is that no matter what direction we come from, we have to be honest, we have to be consistent, and we don't deny what is evident. The police lost a lot of trust and faith in the community by what happened to Breonna Taylor on March 13th. But in all honesty, if we're really being 100% honest, what's happened to our downtown, and I'm not talking about these one-offs with the vandalism and things like that, or the things that happen. I can't expect the new chief to speak for every rogue officer that chooses to be violent and brutal. I can't speak for I don't think that those were our protesters that chose to do that in that way. So I want to say that first. But the first part is what's been happening to our downtown has been happening over time. We are a river city. Life thrives around water, but we've seen a decline in business interest. And I think it started before the convention center was remodeled. I think that there was a trend, and we always worked to build more. So we brought the Omni here, thanks to Mayor Fisher and everyone, and we're attracting more businesses. We got the Yum Center, which over time, a lot of those kind of places show that they don't make the money that they're supposed to make for a while. And so the downward trend that we see in our downtown, and remind you, my business is also located downtown. That started before the protest. That became COVID has exposed that. COVID has shown that we don't have to have the buildings filled up. We can send people home and they can be productive at home, because we were forced to make those decisions because COVID gave us no other way out, right? And so we have to own the fact that COVID-19 and the impacts from that was the biggest detrimental thing that happened to us in 2020 period. But that we had already seen a decline in annual events and activities and things like that. That trend had already started. So much more cities, not just our river city, are faced with that dilemma. But I do have hope. I believe in this city. I think that it takes what we did is we said, okay, we need business, and then social services decline. I think that we have to get to a place where social services is held at the same accord, because if we bring those parks up to par, which were key. The parks gave us a place to socially distance and to be able to be active and be proactive. And that park, the Injustice Square is what we've renamed that, was Hot Dog Park. I know, because I worked in all of those buildings at different times. You walk through the park, you get a hot dog, you go to another building, you might take your break. That park will never be the same again. It will never look the same. But it wasn't that if people didn't care about this city or respect the city, Doug, I hate to say it, we would have been on fire a long time ago. I think, yes, the businesses that closed, that wasn't from protesting. That was from COVID. And we have to own that. And I think it's hard for people because they get the news and they only see, well, the protesters are downtown. Just because our fist is in the air, because we want justice and we want policy to follow those fists, doesn't mean that we want our downtown to look in shambles. People clean up all the time. People always are cleaning up, disinfecting everything. We had very low numbers of people who even tested. We even tested people for COVID at the park. Every event that we've had. But that's just one corner area of our downtown, Doug. That's not the whole area. I think folks march through 4th Street Live and march by it, but what the decline in 4th Street Live has come from the discrimination, has come from just people not having enough money. And really, our real estate does not match our wages. Our wages are too low in Louisville. Our wages make people have to make really tough choices. Do I go out to eat, or do I save this money to pay my LG&E? Do I pay my water? Do I pay my rent? I think what folks don't realize, and what I know from being in these different communities, is that a lot of people are house poor. A lot of people literally just do not have enough money. I mean, my husband and I finally made it to Braceros down there, and it was amazing. It was expensive, amazing night, but it was beautiful. I had plans to go to Morton's and to all the other places. I still never been to Roof Chris. I literally have been working my whole time, and I didn't feel like I could afford that. So we have to be honest about the reality of what people can really afford and what's viable, and what can we do to attract more people here. And guess what? Even during the protest, People were coming from out of town, from out of the country. Louisville is still a destination city that people want to come and learn more about. Yes, people saw the protests and what we're dealing with our police. The thing about police abuse and police brutality, people are dealing with some form of it all over the world. So I don't think that that is something that'll stop somebody coming from Louisville. The eyesores of them putting up the boards really made people feel like, oh, we're shutting down. But the main result, the main cause of that was COVID-19. So we have to honor that that's what the main cause was, but then we are not done and we are not lost because of it.
Let's talk about your view of law enforcement. Of course, as mayor, your biggest budget item is public safety and the police department. The mayor hires and fires the police chief. You have an interesting view of it as the manager of the Louisville Bail Project. And, of course, then we all know what happened in September. You and Attica Scott were arrested for felony rioting. And, of course, all those charges were later dropped. But you were through Metro Corrections. So you would come at the police department with such a different view than most any mayor that I know of that I've ever covered in my lifetime. I know you're getting ready to meet with Erica Shields, and as you and I record this is her very first day on the job. She's just pleading with people, give me a chance. You've got to give me a chance. What would you take the police department, try to, as a mayor, in a different direction? Tell me your view of officers and police as we stand today.
I don't know if you saw the Courier Journal did a beautiful story on some of the women in the movement, and during that conversation, I let Bailey Loosemore know that I had once applied to become a police officer. I actually come from a family in Cincinnati that are police officers. I was 22 or 23 when I applied, and I did it as like, oh, let me see if I can take this test. And it was over 5,000 people, and I was selected. So I went through the process and got eliminated because I was 6 seconds short of the goal. I remember Ann Braden said, well, you wouldn't have never met me if you'd have completed that. I said, yeah, because I would have had to reapply the next year, and then I just moved on to the next thing. So let me first tell you, I grew up wanting to make a difference, wanting to be in social services, always had an eye out for human services. That is something that I've always wanted to do because I believe in behavioral health. I believe in people being motivated. I believe in our society. And so I know a part of that society comes with security, comes with community policing. So I want to say that I have a cousin now whose father we lost and is actually, my other cousin played football here, and he's now coach at the University of Cincinnati. But he is a fireman. And so I know that when we talk about the police budget and the police safety and public safety, we're talking about their budget as well. So everybody is connected. But when we invest in public health, we touch all of those areas. I think that for too long, and I know elected, I'm not going to be the best politician in saying this in this way. I know that a lot of times they're chasing after that policeman endorsement, which is powerful in its own right. But that's not what I'm seeking when I'm talking about being mayor. I'm seeking for them to understand that if we're raised and we're bred to give the police the benefit of the doubt. I went through their programs. I've been in many police programs, and we hold them to a certain light. And so when our police become corrupt or they make a mistake, there has to be some level of accountability because that's what we've been taught to understand about them. What's happened in this process with Breonna Taylor is that we did not see that. What I said to our mayor, Greg Fisher, is right in Justice Square, right when he used to come there, I said, why don't you just fire those officers because there's no public we don't trust them. We can't look at them and think that they're going to treat us right. And he said, Shameka, I can't, and they will sue. And he started naming off the statutes and things like that prohibit him from making certain decisions. I said that to me would have shut things down a long time ago. If folks are thinking they're here 236 days, why, what can we do? I told them affordable housing, the police owning their responsibility in the death of Breonna Taylor, those police folks seeing that they're held accountable, those things would have shut protesting down a great deal. And so when I did come through, I will be 100% honest with you. When I came through, I said, as mayor, you could fire the whole police department, make them go through mandatory training, go over their record, do just what the folks are doing now for the inauguration, go through those National Guard's history, make sure they're not connected to any racist or right-wing group, because that, to me, is the only way to get all of the rogue and racist and abusive officers. So when I first started protesting, that was part of the notion. Maybe we just need to fire them all and then rehire them based on because right now, if they're fired, they still own their firearms. They get to take them home. So we remove their badge, but this is not like Law and Order where they just turn in their badge and their gun. They keep their guns. And I don't want to create enemies. I don't want to create more right-wing militias if that's the case. And I know that there's a lot of officers who work every day to do the right thing, who wake up, but they're not supported. So they have to end up bleeding blue in a way that lets them turn the eye on abuse. So as mayor, I know it's hard. I knew our mayor was stuck between a rock and a hard place, but you have a police force of around 2,000 people or less, and you have a city of nearly more than 700,000 people. To me, at some point, you have to say to yourself, what is for the greater good of our whole city? What do I need to show? Traditionally, and I've said this in many interviews, the police don't listen to the police chief. We've seen that time and time again. I've been in all the meetings, the community meetings at the Urban League, and I've seen where these police chiefs are trying to fight. The biggest battle is with fighting that FOP, who tends to rear their head when they're coming out against strong speaking Black women. You see letters that, and none of us are saying we want to take all your jobs and we're going to replace them. No, I want it done in a right way, in a community policing way. And I said to myself, before I talked to you, I said, if somebody's listening to this show, they might think, well, if she becomes mayor, some police are going to quit. I think if I become mayor and some police choose to retire early or to quit, that is because they don't want to do right by the people. Because nothing I've said says that I'm anti and I hate the police. Nothing has said that. I think that me becoming mayor will encourage more people who feel like they want to do what I thought that I was going to do at 22. Join the police force, work on non-arrest interactions, get to know the community, walk the beat, talk to the community, be accountable to the community, and get that approval, because we know that there's a form of policing that's needed. And it hurts to say that. It hurts to tell you this on the phone as a Black woman who's worried about her Black sons and her 4 Black daughters. And as they navigate, even now, even though I do all this work, when the police get behind me, I still feel something, Doug. I still feel it because I know what's out there and what I'm facing against, even though I have family that's police officers to this day. So
you gave a speech on MLK Day downtown. I watched it live on Facebook Live, where you said you don't care what the surveys say about Kentucky. We are poised for change. Is that what you're getting at? And will you take that message when you meet Erica Shields, the new police chief, for the first time? Are you going to tell her you support her, or you wouldn't have picked her as chief?
I'm going to tell her I don't like that the part of the process was closed off to us. I did complete the survey and did encourage other folks to complete the survey. I was in Atlanta when it was being announced, and I said to myself, why didn't we reach from within? I do think that there is probably someone already on our police force who could have gotten in that position and started us from a different direction. But we have no choice now. And I'm not so anti-choice because she is still a woman, and I do believe in women leadership, that we have no choice but to give her a chance. I heard that Councilwoman Green said that. She was my councilwoman before I moved to Shively. Give her a chance. And I definitely will do that as a community member. I'm now co-chair of the Kentucky Alliance. I'm still operations manager for the Bell Project. All of my positions means that I'm going to interact with our police department, with our corrections department, whether I become mayor or not.
Give me a review of the Bail Project. For people who may not be aware of it, it's a nonprofit, and you have millions of dollars. So you're actually a lot of money to keep people out of jail. And tell me the goal of it, the aim of the Bail Project.
Well, thank you. We started in 2018, nearly $9 million invested into our city. Average stay in jail is $83, and the average cost is $83 a day, with the average stay being 23 days. So if we started in 2018, we're almost at 3,000 people at around just under $9 million. That tells us that we are an incarceration place and that pretrial incarceration is so costly. And I think now, as we reimagine public safety, as we reimagine everything, and with the releases of Chief Justice Minton, with what our Governor Beshear has done, we've been able to, all working together, shut down one of the community jails, which was CCC over there on Chestnut. Mm-hmm. And now we have the one jail. But every week I check on those numbers, and those numbers are starting to creep right back up. And so I take jobs to work myself out of a job. I really believe in that social justice theme that we have. My job is to work myself out of a job. So when I took this on as a project, it is to show that with our data that we collect from the people that we bail out on a needs-based place, because Kentucky is one of the only states that has a pretrial system that automatically rates people. But we know from judges, from lawyers, from prosecutors, all of those things are baked in. And so that makes it unjust. And so a way of playing bail was set up to be an incentive to return to court, never meant to be punitive, but it's used in a punitive way. And people are held simply because they're poor. We just opened a site in Cincinnati, and my bail disruptor there paid $79 to get someone out of jail for the Christmas holiday. $79. We pay bills that are $25. That means surety bond, it might be a $500. You know me, Doug. You pay $25. You sign the paperwork saying you'll make sure I get back to court, and I'm done. So when $25, people have been held in jail because they had no one to come down and pay for weeks. $250 bills.
You're talking about all kinds of offenses?
Yes. Mm-hmm. All kinds of offenses. It's a pay-as-you-go system. And so these are low-level offenses. And people don't get a chance to prove their innocence when you're stuck in there, because nobody's going to work harder on your case than you. And so what we're doing with this work is leveling the playing field. And now I'm in conversations with legislators. I'm in conversations to talk about how policing leads to that. Over-policing in Black communities in the West End and communities all over Kentucky leads to our local jails being crowded and overcrowded. And the fact that some people are being held until they go on to prison. And so getting people out pre-trial gives better outcomes. It gives everybody their day in court, and we see less people going on to prison. That outcome is what I can sleep with at night. That outcome means that even with all the COVID releases, we have not seen a bunch of people recidivate, meaning getting locked back up. We've seen the numbers at a steady rate, but they can be lower. We've seen that letting people out on the basis of what our Constitution set it up to be, you're innocent until proven guilty. And there are situations where people are held, but those things are proven to a judge who makes that decision. Our judges have so much discretion. They don't use the bail schedule, and they barely use the pretrial report. And so the fact that they can make those decisions every day, and we see more surety bonds, we see more lower bonds, because if I get in trouble for speeding or locked up because I don't have car insurance, does that mean I need to go to jail where COVID is treated is like a petri? I'm like a petri dish. I'm bound to get COVID as long as I sit in jail. Does that mean that I deserve to die? And so this stops the police officers. This stops the corrections department from being judge, jury, executioner by getting people out pre-trial as we can. It's a case-by-case basis. There's no foolproof system, but constantly incarcerating Kentuckians and Louisvillians is not it, and it costs us a great deal of money. And I met with GLI, who said, yes, your clients are our clients. They're the ones who are working the service positions. They're the ones who we depend on to work the jobs. They're the ones that we depend on to attract new businesses here. So it's all connected. And my job is to work to show people why it's better that when we invest in the things of like public health and jobs and affordable housing, that benefits everyone. It's the gift that keeps giving. So I love the work, and I'm looking forward to showing this to the whole state.
So let's talk about your interest in politics. You originally wanted to be on the Jefferson County School Board, and didn't you run for that seat?
I did. It was a special election, and actually no one had applied. I have something about just getting these notions, but no one had applied. And I was like, you know what? This seat is vacant. I need to apply. Well, when I applied, and there was a bunch of other folks that applied, and I really wanted to keep the voice. Shively is a changing community, and our district, a large part of our district, with that school board district, is in Shively. And I definitely know from being a parent, from being on PTA, from being at the school boards advocating for our children and our teachers. I've met with the past 3 or 4 superintendents advocating for teachers and students. I was not a stranger to that school board, but I didn't get the appointment, and so that meant I had to run in a special election, and it was 8 people on the ballot, only 7 of us considered as candidates, and I came in second. I came in with just over 20% of the vote.
So let's talk about what the campaign for mayor will look like. When Greg Fisher ran for mayor the first time, it became the most expensive mayoral race in our history with the millions of dollars they raised. What kind of reaction have you received since you made it public? That and we did. I was glad we did the first story on your interests here on WHAS 11. You announced that you were doing the exploratory committee. Have people sent you any money yet? How's the process playing out?
Well, Doug, like my school board campaign, when I called up to check on my crest to do my filing, they said, you know what, we got a lot of requests for your paperwork. And I said, that's good. I'm used to, as a Black woman, I'm used to working harder than anybody else in the room. We have to, right? And so I want to make sure all my I's are dotted, all my T's are crossed. So the exploratory committee has agreed that we are moving forward. Our next thing is a letter to the KREF to let them know that we will be fundraising. The response, though, Doug, has been amazing. And not just Louisville, it's been all over the state and out of the state, because I literally was in Atlanta when I made that decision. And so ever since I announced, I was going to bed and did a soft announcement on social media, and people responded. But then your story really lit the fires. I think some people took me more serious, and I think it's been amazing to see how people want something different. They want change. We didn't get a choice in the police chief, right? We didn't get a choice in those officers being fired, but we have a choice to elect the mayor that's going to have her ear to the ground, that's been on the ground, that's slept on the ground, and it's going to continue to make sure that she makes the best choices possible. But Doug, I've got 6 kids. I have 2.5 grandkids. This is the biggest race of my life. Going on 14 years of marriage, I thought that was a roller coaster. I expect this.
With a family that big, you've got half the campaign team set up right there.
I do. I got the kids, and my kids are so excited. It's the biggest race of my life, Doug. And so I'm giving it all. I've decided that I want to make sure everyone that works on the campaign, we're vetting people. We're making sure that we have nothing but the best moving forward. But here's the best thing, Doug. People want me to run. The people believe in me. And those people, those millions of dollars that I know other candidates can raise, does not translate to who they're going to vote for when they get in that voting booth. That is the most powerful thing, that I can speak to every kind of voter. Now, whether some hear me as well as others, that's the work that I'm willing to do. I'm willing to prove myself. I'm willing to show them everything that I am. But the fact that those voters are going to go in that booth, we're going to take some of that money that we think that you got to have millions of dollars to be our mayor. That is not accurate, but we've accepted that because we wanted to, as a collective, we wanted to vote for the best winning chance that we got. But this is more than winning. Like I said, it's bigger than business. It's bigger than all of us, because the eyes of the world are on us. Will you at least pitch your campaign to the deep pockets here in town, the philanthropists? You know their names. They're the usual suspects who give to the political campaigns. And will you pitch your campaign to them, and I'm sure they'll say to you, well, Shameka, what are you going to do to turn around the economy? Yes, I will. And I don't want to give all my little ancient secrets away, but I will say, Doug, thank you for saying the usual suspect, because when I say, people are like, what are you saying? The good thing is that I've been in some spaces with some of them, and some have already started reaching out through other people that I know that we're connected to. What people are going to see is how well connected I am. I'm not just some social media person or that posts things. I've actually been working and running my whole life. I just didn't know it. And I think what 2020 did, it showed who were going to be the leaders to step up. I already been doing the work of a mayor right there in Justice Square, right across from our Hall of Justice. I've already been making sure resources get to who they need to go to, making sure that businesses have a buy-in, making sure that whatever money we raised, Doug, we spent thousands upon thousands of dollars putting people in the hotels that surround Justice Square and downtown and throughout Louisville. We spent thousands of dollars in the local stores, from the CVS's to the Walgreens to the moms and pops to the black businesses to the restaurants to the minority-owned businesses. We've put that money that we raised from direct aid right back in there. And I was key in that because as a business owner, I know how much our business has suffered. I didn't even apply for the small business loan. I just trying to make sure my rent is caught up and move forward. So it's important that I speak to the business community because I am a part of their community as well. I need people to understand that. I'm not anti-police. I'm not anti-business. I'm pro bringing folks together and being proactive about it. From the Muhammad Ali Center to all the entities that were the Humana Foundation, all these folks who have reached out and donated timeless, like from everything from that Floyd New Albany mayor came over and donated masks and sanitizer. People from all over have come to Injustice Square because of the work that we were able to do. And that work has kept our city from being on fire, from being damaged more than anybody can even think of. We've done that together, and we've given the young people something that they can say, look, I want to run for office. I want to become a community organizer. I want to do this work in the best way. So right now I'm working on a base to have those young people think about elections because we have so many seats coming up in 22. It's going to be a huge year, and we cannot do that without a better economy. We can't bring our city to healing without bringing all the pieces together. And I am, Doug, whether folks want to recognize it or not, more than any other candidate that might even join in, I'm more connected to every one of those communities than any of them, from our Latinx community to all over. And so I know that, and it's going to be my job to show that and my team's job to help me get the word out to every corner of Louisville.
So when you run for mayor, Shameka, and when you go out to Prospect, Northeast Jefferson County, Middletown, Okolona, Jeffersontown area, and you're running for mayor, what will be your message to those folks who live out that area of town who are removed from downtown in West Louisville?
That they matter too. That I know that when we're in conversations and we talk about West Louisville, because with the South End too, the South End is neglected a lot as well. So what I can tell them is that even if I haven't lived out here, my children have went to school in these communities. My children have come to participate in events. I've been a part of a lot of community events in those areas. None of those communities that you name are a stranger to me. And so it would just be my job to take my message to the door. I'm still working on my platform to make sure it's inclusive of every community, of every Louisvillian. So I'm still developing that, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I don't want to act like I have all the answers. That's why I have a committee. That's why I have a team that is helping me build the best platform possible. So what I will do is make sure that messaging gets to them, make sure that I'm inviting. All my work is intergenerational, is intercultural. All of my work crosses the lines of difference because I really operate from a place of intersectionality. That's what my small business does as a consulting business and a legacy project business. That's what I do as a community member and all the boards that I sit on. Every place that I touch has been important. And as a Black woman in this city, trying to grow and survive and thrive, I've been running for this my whole life. Like I said, it's just time to step up and to have leadership that is willing. Being a mayor is a thankless position, right? It's a lot of long hours, a lot of long nights. The good thing is that my family is prepared for that. I was Annie O'Connell's campaign manager. I worked on Representative Scott, Danny Alvarez. I worked on so many different campaigns, and I've always, since I was 15 years old, raised children, worked, went to school, and did everything I could for my community. So this is nothing new for me. It's not a strain. It's just me accepting a bigger role because the people have asked me to be there to bring their voice to the table where they don't feel like it's being heard. And that's what I can tell every one of those communities. There's something in this platform that's for you. And if it's not there, I'm willing to listen to make sure that we get those answers and we get those solutions there. The good thing in me is they have a solutions-based person. I'm not going to stay in the weeds of personality conflicts and drama. I'm working across the aisle. I'm working with anyone who's willing to show up and do the work. And I've already given that example doing the work at Injustice Square. I'm going to continue that and take that in as far as I can take it.
So I'm interested in your opinion on this. We've got 2 years left of Greg Fisher, and of course the whole community hopes that he can be the one to forge the new leadership and turn the city around. But you told me you voted for Greg Fisher his first time around. He sort of had the campaign slogan of the people's mayor. We saw him in West Louisville a lot. And then we had May 28th, come along. What's in your mind his biggest failing? What is the one blind spot that he had, maybe, that you have now seen loud and clear that either we didn't see coming or his biggest failure with the administration?
Wow, that's a powerful question. Let me choose my words wisely. That I hope to be in Greg's position, and I hope to keep the people's voice first. I want to say that first. But as mayor, I do feel like he surrounds himself with some amazing people, many of which I have relationships with. And I do feel like there's too much listening to the usual suspects, to the status quo, who might not have their finger on everything. So being a mayor and deciding, a mayor is the epitome of human services to its city. And so a mayor has to understand that every decision made, it's not just about showing up and kissing babies. That's not who I'm trying to be. That's what I will definitely do that because I love the kids. But I'm more about bringing voices to the communities that's often neglected when we just focus on, okay, we're going to build this business or we're going to expand this. We have to make sure that we're listening to every voice, from the houseless to those who work in our medical field. He is surrounded by some of the most intelligent people, but he's also insulated to what real Louisvillians are dealing with. The Louisvillians I talk to live in neighborhoods where they're struggling to even pay their mortgage. There's some that go to U of L and even work at U of L who are struggling to pay their bills, who are making a decision, do I pay this medical bill or do I pay my mortgage this month? Do I go and try to be a part of this committee, or do I work this extra job so that I can get by? So what I want to be is better. I want to be better about business. I want to be better about community. And I want to make sure that I am bringing every voice there, even the ones that surround me. Now, I think that in any position, any elected official has to make some tough decisions, no matter what. And I think that I can't take the whole year from him because nobody expected COVID and the impacts of COVID. That's one reason why I'm not pushing for him to resign. I think that now people consider him a lame duck. I think he gets to be a pioneer and moving the city the best way he can. I look at Mayor Frey, we did see things burn there, but has since been out front making decisions to make sure that the community is included. I not only voted for Mayor Fisher one time, Doug, I voted both times. Well, is it 3 times now? So I definitely believed in him for that business piece that he brought and that vision. And I didn't think I thought the other candidates were ready, but I also thought that there was more that needed to be added, because you can't just have a social justice lens. You have to have a way to be proactive, because what's coming after this COVID-19, the impacts are going to last for the few years to come. And so we have to have someone that's ready to be proactive about that part of our city, that part of our community, and prioritizing the people over the police budget. Has to be dealt with.
How did his relationship early on with West Louisville go off the tracks? Do you lay it solely at the police department and the leadership of the police department because they're so actively involved in the day-to-day lives of everybody? Or was it promises that weren't completed that ended up leaving the neighborhoods neglected instead of the investments that people wanted to see?
I think it's both. I think you answered that with both. And I think that the emphasis that more police is going to make it better. Giving them more money is going to make it better. I think that money should have been reallocated to the community groups that are actually doing the work, that everything doesn't have to go under the city's hub to be viable. If the city sees a community group that's doing the work better, why not fund that group in the right way, right? I know that the council has discretionary funds, but those are very limited. The budget could be written in a way to give those groups and those organizations and those projects that are doing amazing work the help they need. And if they don't have the capacity to take on more funding, then that's when we work with Metro United Way, we work with the Urban League, and we work with other bigger groups in the YMCA, all those groups that get most of the funding. We work with them to make sure that they are partnering with the smaller organizations, not just on paper, but in person, to help develop that capacity. Can we share an accountant? Can we share an administrative staff? Can we get this done so that all of those groups are brought up to par? I think that's why I was a little frustrated about Erica Shields being chosen, because I actually think we got to stop thinking we need to reach outside of our own box to get the help and the expertise that we need. We have people who have great answers for Louisville, but are we listening to them? We can't just take their ideas and build like the safe and healthy neighborhoods and just use that as a way to take on parts of people's ideas. We get to fund their ideas. We get to help them explore with their ideas, and we get to help them expand. And I think if we are able to do that, we'll take care of the South End. We'll take care of our Americana community, as well as our growing international immigrant community, as well as the West End, as well as Newburgh, as well as other neighborhoods that are tired of just hearing about the West End. The West End is one part of town. Yes, the West End is crucial and vital, but the West End wasn't always the black end of town. There was other communities who had more black people and people of color in there who needed the support. And some people have changed where they live. They've changed their business just to try to meet to where the funding is going. And that's what happened. We all end up chasing the little bit of funding that's there instead of reallocating some of the money from the biggest budgets we have and making sure it gets to the spaces it needs to go.
What is the hope you see for West Louisville for the future? Have you seen any changes since the May protests began?
Yes, I've seen people wanting to be more proactive and take more actions of their own, and not relying on government. So we've raised so much money and resources without any help from the city, without any funding. We've gotten people fed. We fed thousands of people, not just at Injustice Square, in the West End as well. We've gotten them NTI things that they need. We've been able to do all of this thing without city funding. Imagine if we can have real partnerships with the city to help expand that. And I think the West End needs that. Don't just feel sorry for the West End. Don't just throw a few crumbs and think that that's it. Actually fund things, help people become homeowners, help them become renters, help them lower their utilities, because I lived on Section 8 in the West End and my utilities was often higher than my own rent. And so if we want to really help the West End, we need the people who are directly impacted to be at the forefront of any solutions being made. We don't need the usual suspects. And that's all kinds of folks, like the usual leaders you call on. Okay, let's reach behind them. Let's find somebody else that might have the answers. I think it's been too much of who knows who and who've been there before than people who have the new ideas and being bold. And our young people have it. Our young people, I think, have always had it. I think it just takes us to actually listen to them and understand that knowledge moves both ways, and that we need to be making sure that school board, the Metro Council, all these major committees and community boards have young people as a part of that, because they're growing and they're not from respectability politics. They want your words to match your actions. That's how I got the respect at Injustice Square. That's why some of the people on the mayor's staff call me the mayor of the square, is because I actually did what I said I was going to do. If I couldn't do it, I let them know, and I showed up and I was consistent. Consistency, honesty, it opens so many doors, and I think every community deserves that, and they deserve elected officials that's going to give them that. No more just I'm running on name, or I'm running on because I marched with King, or I did all this other stuff. We need real people who's going to offer real solutions and real answers that we can get behind of. And that's why I'm the candidate that people need to see they can get behind, because I'm definitely going to bring that. I'm definitely going to make sure my actions match every word that I say.
As mayor, you're probably going to be asked about the future of the square. There had been a plan way before May 28th, I think a year before, to totally rehab Jefferson Square, rip it out. And there was a whole new plan to make it, because as you know, it was built in I think the 70s to make it more of a park. How would you respond to that? What do you believe the future of that area needs to be?
And I did see the plans for that. Actually, someone sent it to me and I shared about it. What was interesting, even in the redevelopment plans, there was a picture in there of a white man with a bullhorn, and it said rally, rally space and protest space. That tells me that has always been seen as that. So what is the problem that we took over Jefferson Square Park, renamed it Injustice Square, to keep what happened, the abuse and the brutality, right in the face of our city government, right? So that was the whole point of setting it up and creating a base so that our young people don't die in those streets, because our young people are ready to put their bodies on the line. So my mayoral response is, what happens to our downtown, it matters to everyone. It matters to me. I love skylines. I love downtowns in any city that I travel to. It's life, right? It should thrive. It should be beautiful. And we have to reimagine what that looks like for us. We have to be able to attract business people to our downtown district. We have to know what's going on with our houseless people. What space do they have? I still drive through Jefferson, because the second time I was homeless here, I was homeless at the men's shelter, was considered Wayside's men's shelter, mm-hmm. and it was a family shelter as well. Well, when they started building the overpass, me and my family was there. When they were jackhammering and taking off parts of the building, we came outside, and I just looked at the development happening all over us, all around us. But was the houseless community included? And so I think that there's a way to imagine our downtown that's beautiful, that's inviting, that's engaging. And when it comes to Injustice Square, that's what folks want there too. People clean up, they sanitize, they throw things away, they do all those things because they care about it. And it goes back to my original point about the parks being so pivotal in what we've been doing. They're public parks. So I definitely think whatever happens to it, if this development is improved, it's beautiful, but it wasn't enough green space, right? Don't take all the green space away. But I think folks are for it. I think it needs to be, I know Christopher 2X talked about this when he first came down. When we first started the square, he was like, Shameka, we need to have this middle part be a fountain, and there's a memorial for the police, there's a memorial for the firemen, and which to say, look, those places, that's beautiful, and there should be a memorial for EMTs, and it should be named for Breonna Taylor. So I think whatever comes of that, there should be something very significant to honor who Breonna Taylor was, to honor the life and the movement around her. And there should be some kind of plaque that says that and identifies that, because we can't ignore it. You can remake it and rebuild it, but you can't take away from what it became and what it was. I've been there, Doug, when people from France, people from Italy, people from Africa, all over came to Injustice Square because they heard about us taking a stance against police abuse and police brutality. So I know that we can't erase that. And then there should be some kind of marker that says, you want to see what else happened? Check out Breonna's memorial at Routes 101, which is where we took the legacy piece of that to there. And I think the next thing is what I'm in talks with the city, because I'm in these biweekly calls, is to set up another base, a community center. Community centers are suffering. They're barely being used. We don't know how long folks will have the buildings. There's a way to put resources into those community centers. If we do that and we let them be engaging and inviting, people will move out of that square into those centers if they know that they can be just as welcome, taken care of like they were at Injustice Square. And so one of the things we're working on is Unity Church is working with myself, with Feed Louisville, definitely under Stachelle Bussey, who has Hope Bus. and they're looking to move out of that area, which is right by Brook. And it's where a lot of houseless people are. And across the street is where the headquarters for the Archdiocese was. And there's like living quarters. There's a whole campus. So what we want to do is take that and the good things of Injustice Square and move it over there and be able to operate out of there and have a real place for people to come and learn and grow and build community and work in faith and work in love. And I'm so thankful for Stachelle and all of her amazing work and all of the groups that have grown out of Injustice Square. They're planting seeds all over the city. So I'm trying to work with the city to say, hey, help us acquire this property and that property across the street. Is all it is houseless people over there, and they're being terrorized. If they had a place to go in, we can continue the work that we're doing at Injustice Square. And guess what? Houseless people are more on point with when it's time to move or when it's time to do something different than anybody. Because I know, as being a houseless person, you know when something's going to run out. You know where you go get your meals at. You know where you can sleep at. And if we move that activity and that energy, guess what? They're going to follow us. So these fears that people have, that people don't care about Injustice Square, or that we just want to turn downtown into an eyesore, is not true. What we did is honored a movement, honored a moment by showing up and creating a base that was needed, Doug. It was needed. And so what we need moving forward has to be done in a very proactive way. And it has to be ready to deal with what we got to be ready to squash any other pandemic. It has to be set up where things are socially distanced, where there's enough green space, where there's enough activity coming through, where the trash, all those things are picked up. And it can be whatever folks want it to be. But they cannot act like that Jefferson Square was the epitome of downtown. It became that because of the protest, right. And it can become even more.
Picking up on what you were saying about honoring and remembering, of course, March 13th of 2021 will be the 1 year mark when Breonna Taylor was shot and killed. And I was wondering what kind of plans that you know of will be on that date. It's a Saturday coming up in March for a date that will certainly be big when it comes to the movement.
It's a huge day, and we are planning, Roots 101 will have the exhibit open for Breonna's Memorial right on Main Street. There'll be an opening for that. We talked about from 2 to 4. We talked about a bike ride that starts at Injustice Square, where we would have some speakers. We would honor Breonna Taylor and all the people that we've lost in the subsequent movement for Breonna Taylor, and let folks speak, let the family come there. We've been working with Tyler Gerf. There's a foundation for him now that his family is working on. David McAtee and his family have a bunch of things going on. So everyone will come and share what they're doing, and the different foundations. Even we have to reach out to the Travis Nagby Foundation, but to have all those different groups come and share what they got moving forward, so people know how to plug in. But definitely Saturday is my favorite day of the week, by the way. So when I looked it up and I was like, oh my goodness, it's on a Saturday, I immediately called Representative Scott and I was like, look, we got to do something this day. So the Cyclists for Racial Justice did a jersey fundraiser, and we're going to all wear our jersey fundraiser and do a major caravan and bike ride from Injustice Square after we have some speakers. And of course, we're going to have food and entertainment. And we're just going to make it a day of celebrating the legacy and the life of Breonna Taylor and everyone that has been lost by police abuse and police violence, and violence, period, right? We have so many murders that have happened in the last year that we definitely would be remiss if we didn't mention that. So just a day to honor her life and to honor all of those that we've lost in 2020, and to think and to work on the legacy on moving forward. I'm hearing that Until Freedom has something planned. I don't know what those plans are, but we are definitely, as the Injustice Square park organizers, we're going to work together to make sure that whoever's doing an event, that they're all connected. So what's happening at Roots 101 will be definitely connected to there. We have the Justice Now Coalition with the teacher Matt Kaufman that was arrested, and Ari Parker, who was one of the students arrested. we're all working together to see what's next. And so March 13th is going to be a huge day in Louisville. And I'm imagining some of the council people and our elected officials will work on some proclamations and things like that. And we're definitely going to be working with the Breonna Taylor Foundation on them showcasing what's next. I know they talked about a community center as well, and places to go and doing activities with the kids and working on jobs and things like that. And so, yeah, it's going to be amazing. But a huge day for Louisville will be March 13th. We cannot let this movement die and not show what the next steps are, and not we're still seeking justice, right? I don't know what can happen on a justice lens from now and there unless we get Breonna's law passed, and that is even a bigger thing to celebrate. But it's going to be a huge day. We're still working on getting Breonna's law passed and doing a statewide tour. We're just working on raising the money for the bus to take to the different counties because we need county support.
Well, as we wrap it up, I've got two final questions for you. Do you have a campaign slogan yet? Do you have a catchy campaign slogan that you're going to be using?
I'm accepting all of them, but I've heard Parrish, I heard the right way, doing Louisville the right way. I like honoring my maiden name, Parrish and Wright. So I'm still working on, I'm receiving a bunch of them. I don't have one yet, but you'll be one of the first to know as soon as we get it sorted out. But we're testing different slogans, and my name is so long, I take up all 25 characters on the ballot. So we are trying to be creative and make sure that we represent and look, and we're recognizable on the ballot as well.
And I want to end this by asking you, of course, you've lived your life as you've laid out your biography here of what you've been through. But I was wondering if the strong Black women who are the backbone of the movement, did you maybe come into your own through them or through that? Or how did they impact you to bring you to this point to want to lead the city?
Yes, I want to be clear. Thank you for that, because a lot of people are asking about credentials and all the places I've worked and things that I've done, but this is the most important. My strongest shero was Gail Merriweather. That is my mom. We always say the Parrish women have to be multi-talented, but we had to hold up the world. And I learned so many things from her. She's an excellent seamstress. She just does everything, and she fixes things. And so I grew up watching her do it all. And then there's been a host of Black women I've come across my whole life who've inspired me to be bigger, to do better. And the next one, there's a bunch. I don't want to leave nobody out, but Bonnie Hudson is another one of those women. I met her here while Ann Braden and I, before Ann died, we were working on a arts and activism camp, and Ann asked me to work with Bonnie. And then Dr. Blaine Hudson had just become dean, and so she said, "Look, Shameka, I got to go be the dean's wife. So here's this program." And so I took it from all young women's group to co-ed to multiplying the numbers, and I just took the seed she gave me and helped it grow. So Bonnie Hudson is someone I consider a shero. I definitely consider Representative Attica Scott a shero. And we've worked together. I was amazed by Attica when I first met her. We continue to feed with each other. See, people think that I'm an Attica alike, but we've been in this together. We've been saying the way we're going to bring change is if we get more women elected, more Black women into leadership to show what we're already doing. Black women are already mayors in their own communities, in their own families. We've been already doing this work. And so our biggest job is convincing people that rich white businessmen are not the only ones with answers that take care of our city, that can take care of our community. So I would say those two women come first in my line of those three really being inspired by. But my mother is definitely number one.
All right. Shameka Parrish-Wright, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and at least to hear your platform and how this campaign will take out. You are the first to declare your intentions, so now you have 2 years to run a campaign. Are we going to see you starting anything really soon, or are you just going to wait if it gets closer to the actual deadline?
I love that you give me more time. I've given myself 15 months. So getting through primary is the first goal, is getting through primary and keeping the momentum going. So I've been being creative, asking for more community input, asking people about color schemes, asking them about slogans, asking them about locking down my social media, which has been pivotal for a lot of the work that I've been doing. And so bringing this race to the people, right? I can never lose by betting on the people. I may not raise the millions of dollars, but I'm going to raise a lot of interest and spark a lot of people wanting to be involved, whether through voting, whether through working on a campaign. I've had friends from Whitesburg, Kentucky contact me and say, look, we're ready to come and stomp the ground with you. We believe in you. And so I'm going to use all that people power to move this issue. And I think we're going to do well. And I'm glad you mentioned about our usual suspects, our rich families that are in this city and engaged. Yes, I'm going to approach them and ask them to join and to do something different. We've done a lot of the same. Let's do something different.
All right, Shameka, thank you very much for your time and good luck to you down the road.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Bye.
And that's it for this edition of the Prophet Report podcast. Next up, David James, the Metro Council president, who declared his run for mayor on Thursday, January 21st. You can reach me for feedback by email. The address is one word, dprofit, that's DPROFFITT, at WHAS11.com. This has been a production of WHAS 11 Media.